4 years ago, summer entering my second year of middle school, I was at a youth group and we were talking about a man who would wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to pray. You know, I had grown up in the church. I knew what prayer was at this point, but I couldn't understand why would someone wake up at 4 a.m. to pray. And here's the crazy part. My heart started pounding, and back then I didn't really know what that meant. But then a thought popped into my head, and it was saying, maybe you should try that too. And well, welcome to reSTART, Part 1. I went home that night and I set the alarm. Why? I still can't explain it to this day, but I just felt like God was laying it on my heart so strongly that I just had to. So I did. And maybe you hear that story and you think of a similar question to mine. Why would someone wake up at 4 a.m. to pray? And maybe when you think about it, your heart isn't pounding so much and you don't feel like that's for you. And if not, that's totally fine. Or maybe you're starting to think about it. But either way, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into with this series. Whether you want to start up a prayer life for the first time, or whether all you really need is a restart. So in this episode, I want to tackle the question of what? What exactly is prayer? And before you click off this video because you know this one, give me just 1 minute to give you a reminder that you might have to hear. I think a common mistake that people make is how they look at life. Because life started the day I was born and it'll keep going until the day that I die. Oh, and then heaven after that, right? But heaven for many is more of an afterthought. And I don't blame you if you think of heaven as an afterthought sometimes too. I mean, I can reach out and touch this car. It's so real. I can reach out and touch my phone, or I can look at the beautiful sky that God decided to paint for today. Everything feels so real. It's so captivating. But be careful, because it's a small step from being captivating to being entrapping. Let me explain. So many people aren't only captivated by what's going on around them, but trapped. And that's when heaven becomes an afterthought. Compare this life to eternity. I mean, spoilers, you can't. On the grand timeline, this life is nothing. And for some people, that's a harsh reality because they'll work their entire lives striving for a goal where the reward is on earth. And so they really want to believe that it has some kind of value. But if everything I've said today is true about eternity, as the Bible puts it, then nothing in this world really matters. Nothing except God. Except God's kingdom, except for all the ways that we can prepare for eternity on earth. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where prayer comes in. Because as I said before, it's so easy to become entrapped in this reality, and then we lose sight of what really matters. And to not do that, we must be in daily conversation with God, which is exactly what prayer actually is. Just a conversation with the one who put us here. The one who sees behind us, who sees where we are, and who even sees into the future, even when we don't or we can't. And through prayer, we grow to feel him more and more as he walks with us through life. And I know a lot of people know this, but so many want to feel it. Some people know it off of a memory, but so many more want to feel it for themselves. And some people know it off of someone else's description, but they want to feel it. And for everyone who wants to feel it, it's time to start. Or for some, it's time to get a restart. To go back to the roots, to go back to God, to go back to not being trapped in the motions and the waves of life, which is actually a really great analogy for prayer. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Now, we've all heard the story of Jesus walking on water, but did you know that Peter did too? I love this story because in a way, Peter actually represents us. You see, Peter's going through life. He's stuck in the boat, stuck in what's comfortable, and then God calls him out of it, into the waves, into some hard times. Just as sometimes in life, that's exactly what God calls us to go through. And I want everyone to notice something, because when Peter began, he could actually walk on the water, but then he fell. Well, first off, how could he walk? And second, why did he fall? So first off, why could he walk on water? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. He focused on Jesus. He kept his eyes on Jesus. He refused to take them off. And he kept walking, step after step after step. And the second he took his eyes off, you see, the Bible says he looked at the waves and he began to fear. The second he took his eyes from Jesus to the waves and trials that are going on around him, that's when he began to sink. You see, prayer is a conversation with God, but it's also focusing on God, keeping our eyes on God so that we don't sink in the waves of the trials that life will throw at us. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe you read this story and you can't really find where you are in it. Maybe you're Peter when he's drowning in the water. Then in that case, look what Jesus does when he sees that Peter is in the water. He takes out his hand and he pulls him out. Ladies and gentlemen, prayer is a conversation with God that prevents us from drowning in the motions of life. But it's also so much more. You see, I could go on and on about prayer, but God gave me this message for today because He wanted someone to hear it. He wanted someone to watch this video so that they could finally get started or restarted on their prayer life. He's reaching out His hand, calling out your name. And the question is, how will you respond?